Yeah, tell me about it. If you would, we'll have a moment of silence. If you would, I'll officially call the meeting to order and we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Kim Harrison Edwards,
Here.
Councilwoman Sherry Rogers. Here. Councilman Stephen White.
Here.
Councilwoman Deborah Gump. Here. Councilman Herb Curtis.
Here.
City Manager Nate Stansberry.
Present.
City Attorney Brian Bailey.
Here.
Finance Manager Joe Solberg. Here. Chief Mike Posey.
Here.
Chief Jimmy Settle.
Here.
Building Code Zoning Enforcement Officer Marty Lewis.
Here.
Street Commissioner Mike Starrett.
Here.
Sanitary Director Dee Evans.
Okay. Since we have no one signed up to speak, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. You have the minutes from the regular and special sessions in your packet.
I move to approve the minutes as distributed.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second to approve the minutes of the regular and special sessions as distributed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have meetings that will be occurring. The Cemetery Board, Tuesday, March 12th at 4 p.m. The regular meeting on Tuesday, May 14th at 4 p.m. Historic Landmark Commission, next meeting Thursday, March 14th at 6 p.m. You mentioned the Paul Braun grant. Does that need approved from this group or?
I don't think so. The HLC will, we wanted to mention it to them, but I think HLC can, they're going to apply for the Paul Brown grant. And if they choose to accept it, then they accept it. It's just a matter of matching, if they need a match and where that comes from at that point. Which that was my understanding as well. So
Okay.
like at that point, I think they have all the ability to apply for their own grants and carry them out.
Next meeting of the Planning Commission, Wednesday, March 13th at 4. Parks and Rec, there is no meeting scheduled currently. The Lewis County EDA, March 27th at 5 p.m. BZA, Tuesday, March the 12th at 6 p.m. Code Appeals, March 21st at 6. The Weston Tree Commission, Thursday, March 28th at 4 p.m. And I saw where they have a position available for one person, as does the Board of Zoning Appeals, for one position and one alternate. And the Weston Arts Council, Tuesday, March 12th at 6 p.m. at West Hall. And the Weston Municipal Appeals Board, there's one position available. Neighborhood Watch will be meeting this coming Wednesday, March the 6th at 6 p.m. at the Weston Fire Department. The Lewis Gilmer Solid Waste Authority, next meeting Wednesday, April 17th at 6:30. And then you have a comment, West Virginia Municipal League handout. Okay. All right. Next we'll move on to the, oh, sorry.
Going back to the Board of Parks and Recreation, do they go out to like Poke Creek Park and inspect the equipment there to make sure everything's good? There's no, who's responsible? I'm just thinking now,
Yeah.
the kids are getting out there and playing. Do we need to have some kind of inspection out there?
The Board of Parks and Recreation have not met for months throughout all December, and probably late summer was probably the last meeting. So I don't, to be short about it, I don't think anybody's been out there to look at it. I'm going to ask Laura. I think she's going to inherit some of that stuff, and we're going to send her out there to look at some of that equipment. But it's a point well taken. And
Actually did go out at the Willow Street Park today, and there was a gentleman out there, and I talked to him a little bit. I mean, that park looks clean. We've had a request for like a basketball hoop to be put up there. And I spoke with the gentleman who lived in the apartments over there, and he said that he sees a lot of kids out playing there, and a lot of them don't drive, so it's the closest park to them. And he said that he thinks that they enjoy some more park equipment for the younger kids. And I think, adding that, but the park board itself, we're just trying to gather everybody together and then really just kind of figure out how to distribute all the different things that we need to do. It shouldn't be on one person. So really just trying to find the right people that want to be a part of it has been kind of challenging. And people that want to consistently be a part of it and know that it's, the community's parks, it's not theirs, it's everybody's, and they just want to be, that's, we just need some more local folks that are interested in helping with parks and be active.
So you've been to Poke Creek? And checked
No,
it out?
I haven't actually gone down and like walked the grounds. I did drive by and I noticed there's some broken equipment up there. That's something we want to address. But other than that, really haven't gotten out and about. But there's a lot of cleanup projects that we're going to look forward to and really focus on figuring out how we can best move the parks up.
Thank you, Laura. Pardon? Yes, we do.
take care of Pole Creek.
All right.
Michael, take care of Pole Creek.
Sanitary Board report.
I assume you get your report in the packet, so I won't go over too much of it, other than to maybe update a little bit on the phase 2 sewer project. They are currently in the design phase of the brine beds down there, and they're working pretty diligently on that. We've also been working with the accountants on the Rule 42 and the rate phase of that project. Right now, that's where we're at with that. Nothing much new happening other than that, but that phase will move pretty quickly because we want to get it out to bid and ready to go to the construction by the end of the year. So things are going to be moving pretty quickly here very soon. Other than that, at the plant, we did have a truck down, with a transmission, and it's been repaired and back in service. The guys have been out working, the lines there, as per in the office, working a lot with accountants and auditors and city managers and finance managers this past month. That's been pretty busy as far as that goes. The, billing for the month of February was at 170,715.68. And our collections for February was $207,051.19. You'll have some shut-offs we're working on this month, which I guess we always have some shut-offs, but they are definitely down for, billing intention. So people are getting the idea that we're not going away. Do you have any questions? Otherwise, our meeting's next month. We're there.
We also have a reconnection fee.
We do $40 reconnection fee that the water company does charge, and we pass that on to the customer, and then it's regular straight up.
Oh, we don't have.
We don't actually go out and shut the water off and turn it back on.
Or they don't charge us, they do, so it's their own pallets. I understand that.
I have one quick question. Brian, Debs, how's the space?
How's the space down there?
Just driving really nice.
As of right now, I've not heard anything regarding space. I think it's gonna be tight, but I don't think, that it's an issue for right now.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dee.
Thank you.
Next, finance.
I'm just gonna draw your attention to a few things, because I know I'm gonna take a lot of your time at the end of the meeting. I'm gonna try not to take so much of your time like that. And I'm sorry, I didn't have the packet with the page numbers in front of me, but I think around page 30, you'll find an update on the ARPA fund and ARPA balances. That was something the mayor requested throughout the month, and I thought that would be good to remind everybody, I'm sure everybody come around. Just as a reminder. Post on page 30.
The page numbers got cut off.
Their pages are numbered?
You gotta bump them up.
Okay. Right now, every dollar is accounted for, but as a reminder, we have some of that money in a CD, which is bearing interest. Later this month, we will receive our first, payment of that interest, I think it's around, $5,000. And we're anticipating another $5,000 in June. A little bit more than 5,000 each time, so that by summer we'll have about another $11,000 that we get there. Just want to remind you that, bring you that to your attention, remind you where we are in ARPA. Is that the board, Jay? Yeah, the quarter, we're getting that amount. But I haven't made this recommendation yet because I have quite decided what I'm going to do, but I think that when this CD comes due in June, I'm not going to recommend renewing it. Because I think we're gonna have to spend more on time. So, I wish we could keep it in there a few more quarters, but we're gonna be able to do that. Around page 42, I've got justification for, the moving of the vacant structures funds. They're up a little bit this month. We get more billings. So we're at 1,900, but we need to use the vacant structures fund. And I guess on your way there, you have to affect detail.
Would you like me to take care of that before you move on?
Yeah, why don't we go?
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to transfer $1,900 from general fund to the vacant structures fund. Is there a second? Oh, I didn't hear him. I'm sorry. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And next, you do have the check detail report, and I'll entertain a motion to approve that detail report for February. It's been moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Just a few other quick notes, there's a few other items that I'm trying to get tonight that I'm gonna spend some time talking about, at the end of the meeting tonight. But I want to draw your attention to one, it's that first draft of the proposed budget for next year. And then along with that, you've received, just sort of a breakdown of what we're doing in mowing expenses, what we're budgeting mowing expenses for in fiscal 2025, with just a comparison with some other options. Because I know that when you get to see it, those mowing bid numbers and stuff, where you're gonna be asking, is this still the best path? And right now, I think it is still the best path, but I wanted you to see the numbers I was looking at, when I was making that recommendation. So I think that's probably all I have for you right now. Was there anything in particular anybody has?
I have a question.
Not related to the fiscal year.
Oh, no, no, no.
Yeah.
Vacant structures, AR aging summary. Is this people who have paid who have not paid?
That's good enough.
Have not paid? Have we
yeah.
put liens on any of this yet?
Most of them, yeah. If they have balances on there that's greater than 180 days, they probably have them on them, in that far right column. But if they don't have balances that old, then they may not.
More so than that, right? They don't pay for a quarter and it's 90 days. Right?
Okay.
I think just email them to Marty and.
Yeah.
Get them on there.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this total, I'm thinking, well, that's about 3 or 4 more houses
Yeah.
we could take down. Maybe in Ward 3.
And we sent some of those folks to collections this month. That's a new tool that we have. You remember last month we talked about. We did. We basically got these 3 tools in our pocket. We've got liens, sending them to the collections agency and taking them to court. So this past month we pulled out the new tool and sent some of those to collections. That just happened in the past week and a half. So we haven't seen anything from that yet. But I'll keep you updated on. We do.
How are we with municipal fees? Are we getting closer with any of those? Because I know we were still under.
Yeah, no, we're about on track. I think last time I checked, we're about $10,000 behind from where we were last year. So that's not great, but it's in a normal range. Because I think it's right on track to where we were about 3 years ago. Because from year to year, we have, last year was one of our, I'm going to know this, I'll state it correctly. The year before last, I think was one of our best years for collections and municipal fees. Year before that, we were a little bit lower. I think we're sort of on that 3 years ago path right now. And then last year, I think it's right in the middle too. So we're in the normal range, but not as high as we want to be. Just as a personal admission, I don't get to spend the time on municipal funds.
No, I was just wondering because nothing on that. I was just wondering if we're getting closer to next year. So I just wondered where we were.
And when he's saying that we're behind or we're not meeting this trajectory, we're talking about a cash value, right? We haven't brought in as much cash. And I think that that's a little bit of a loaded way. Susie and I would always agree to disagree on how we reported that because it is real money we've brought in, but a lot of that was kind of front loaded with late fees and things of that nature. And so as you catch up, you probably won't be as far ahead because you're not catching as many late fees that are being brought in and kind of and showing you bringing in a lot more cash than you really have billed. So yeah.
Sometimes we hit it, sometimes we come just under it. Maybe it's just under here. But I do think that we're in
In the neighborhood.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, street department.
reports in your old packet there. The only thing that I would like to add to that is looking at the spring cleanup there. And I don't know if your all's looks like this or not, but there's reds and yellows on it. Okay. So you can go through there and look at those. And then on the back page, the back page is what we decided to do was on the mattresses and stuff like that. If we come up on one of those mattresses and furniture and stuff that's not wrapped at that time, we're going to leave them that note. And I will take a picture of the note and leaving it there because I feel that if they have furniture out there or whatever is out there, then it would be such a thing as they would say we didn't leave them a notice. So that way Marty doesn't have to come back and take care of that mess. So we will check back with them on another date if they want to reschedule. We will pick those up. But all that stuff has to be wrapped. And there's something else on there that I know you all probably ask about the tires, and I've asked Laura to take care of some of that problem. And I don't know if she wants to speak about it now. That's fine, or whatever. Doesn't make any difference to me, but I think she's going to help us out on the tires.
She just want the tires on her front porch.
Yeah, that's where we were going to put them at.
Program and she's going to be sending a trailer us on April the 9th from, it'll be sitting at the Water Street parking lot from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And there are limits to what types of tires they can take. Small car tires is what we collect. I've also been in touch with them, and if there's a possibility for even if this is something people are interested in and they can't make that date, if we can cooperate with the street department and be able to transport them, we would be reimbursed the fees for dumping and so that'd be something to plan ahead if that's possible.
Oh, thanks.
And then on mine, if you got any questions or anything, I'll be happy to answer them.
Will citizens need to call in to the city building to schedule that pickup like you always have?
Yes, it goes through there. We'll send out that, I guess we're sending out a notice, right, Judy? It'll be on our face page or whatever. Right? Okay, sure, he says. Okay, and then they'll call in and Judy will make a schedule and we're picking up by wards, okay?
Okay.
What would be the possibility of us getting some signage to put like at, when you come in, you can reuse them year after year, kind of like they do for taco festivals and things like that. Make Weston shine, spring cleanup, and put the date on. And that's more, people, because I don't have social media, so I didn't see it.
So we want something like that is what we're looking for.
Where should we put it?
I just think, where people, come into town, maybe get 5, 6, I don't know how much they cost. They shouldn't be that much money. And like I said, you can reuse them year after year and just change the date on them.
It's a temporary sign for you. Need to go.
Yeah,
Yeah, when
they're
we,
under 100 square feet,
yeah, they are.
Yeah, put them on a utility pole.
and they got to be back from the site for an annual.
And that way people go, well, I didn't know. Well, right there, we have something all around Weston. So,
Okay, any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Police department. Oh,
sorry, I
okay.
just want to know, the scrap metal and stuff, is that going to go into the street department?
Yes. Yeah, we'll be setting I thought I had it on there, but we'll be setting our dumpster over there.
Reimbursement material fund. Yes. You want, I guess, at $20, huh?
So you're right, $5.
If I get pizza on a Friday afternoon from anyone, but, that's just for everybody. That would come in, we probably, if we're over on our reimbursement budget, then we probably look at, we gotta put that reimbursement revenue somewhere. That's your opportunity there to put that back in the first part.
What you have to do about met with the camera crew for the city and whenever the locations we covered under surveillance, under surveillance.
We did go over them, Nate and I've been working with them and also Tyler, and I think we have some places that just, there's some places we need to touch back with, make sure that we can put something on there, or whether some of their cameras working, so.
They're mainly looking at our Christmas light locations, that already have power, that's one of the big requirements, these cameras, from the spot, and so.
It's got power.
Yeah, we've got to have some kind of electrical piece to be able to do that. They were here today, they climbed the tower, back in my tower, and so they got our array hooked up, so the next couple days will be calibrating that thing, making sure it's pointed in the right direction, we'll have some fine tuning adjustments to make it improve. So we're gonna throw in cameras and stuff to because it's all, so, but one thing that we are working with is we can either try to find a place where we can hang a meter socket and work with Mom Power to get electric feed in there, and that's not a month process that we all know we don't want to do. So we have spoken with some private business owners about having a plug that would plug in the electric outside their building, which would be a cost to them, and so, I do want to ask. Yeah, it'll be a fire, we don't want a place where people can unplug it and put it in their cell phone or anything like that.
Right.
Right, and a lot of this can be like, what we're running are called power over internet protocols, so the power comes over the Bluetooth and the cable. We can have the hub inside plugged into an outlet with keeping that cable coming outside, powering all of our arrays. So what I'd like to entertain is Brian and I need to work on just a real small agreement with each place to kind of spell out the rules and how we're doing. I'd like to offer them a credit on their municipal fee or something like that. You all would be willing to do that.
Yes.
I was thinking $10 to $15 for a year to power these things. I don't think power draw is going to be that much of a cost, but I did want to get your guys' pulse and opinions on that before I draft all that. I'll bring that agreement to you guys to approve.
I think we should be done with this. Sure.
And that wouldn't be any kind of, we're gonna pick the property owners who are in the best position for us, right? So it's not like a favor, pick a favors or anything like that.
Water Street.
Or-
Water Street, is there any way to get one? You know, we've had a lot of problems on golf course.
We can look at it,
And I know the Democrat building has cameras that you've utilized.
that's another thing I think like right now, we've looked at the location of Ford Center and West Second. The barbecue place has 2 cameras on each side of the building.
Sure.
And so that's another place where I thought maybe it's worth entertaining if we have some different business agreement to say, hey, we want to give you credit to allow us access to your cameras. So we don't even have to hang a camera there so much. We could just use their camera. Kind of mark that intersection off our list and use the camera first there.
I know there's a problem too, over by CBS.
We knew when we started this that we probably were trying to grow our bases that funds allowed. But we've got a list of intersections that we're going to target.
Sure.
So we can try to.
Main Avenue too.
We have one on Main Avenue, but if this works out good for us, Main Avenue, sorry, we'll be able to go from Muffler, where you all through down to Citizens Bank.
Good. That's what I'm
If it works out for us.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
You're getting all that finished next week.
Yeah.
Right after states.
Well, I will say that it was an eventful week, a couple weeks there. The cameras were not located, nobody knew where they were. And then, I swore I didn't have them, but they swore I did. We were able to locate them, the camera supply did have them in the shop, so. my feeling is you don't turn over the equipment until it's installed, and it's your responsibility until it's installed, so that's what was happening here. We need to locate those cameras. Lakes has another project in Bulltown, and they're gonna be installing Wi-Fi there later this spring, so we've gotta get this done next time to meet their schedule. That's what they do.
Well, at least you've got them on site.
We apologize profusely. Talk with the company, talk to you all, so at this point, let's just get it done and talk about the problem.
Okay, next, police department. Chief Posey?
We have nothing other than a report.
Did you bring the speed sign data?
That is the speed sign data, yes.
Explain that a little bit, Mike. Yeah.
Did I bring mine with me?
He laid it down. He came in and laid it down. It wouldn't be in there. Here, Sherry, take mine. I've already looked at it.
So you can see it's got the date, and in the middle is the speed that's captured, and all the way on the right is the speed limit that's set. And that's 3 days of data.
On State Street.
Yes.
And what happens with this information?
Basically, it's just information that we can use. We have, say, 12 o'clock, there seems to be more speeding, or 5 o'clock, there seems to be more speeding. It's
So you know when to utilize an officer.
more or less.
You've seen our little deployed sign on 33, the flashes at you, things that way through, got a couple different settings.
On State Street for the bus. It was bad. Because everybody in school, everybody's coming home, trying to get home, and they're just, it's terrible. They don't get killed there, but.
Yeah.
Once you get into that before. Not really about us flashing signs, remind you to slow down, but
They don't do it.
I'm looking at that.
Um,
I'm a bad.
My neighbor, John, he got, but killed there. Car hitting me, worked with Sawyer City, my favorite. And he comes down and said, "You have to go to the bank and kind of put it that time." Because, you know, none of it, there's nobody gonna do anything. You know, they still just walk and do it on my app. Then we gotta listen to the music all night because they know that I'm the one from us and they go by our house and allow our night with music to blare. Because they don't want, those construction workers, and out on the total curve, the biggest problem we have is the women. They do not know. No, that around. I look out the window and see. And they're just flying. They don't care. I mean, I realize maybe we'll have to give them the same sort of thing. But, you know, think about that. Yeah, they had kids too. We had people walking, taking their kids out and walking. There's only so much sidewalk. Right. And people want to walk their kids or on strollers, they've only got that little space. And the other time, they're just gonna take the chance to go. And like, I showed somebody, there are a lot of people that just, they have to talk. They don't want to talk. No matter what the weather is.
It is kind of interesting. It looks like 5 or 6 in a row are consistently over the speed limit, and then it drops to a lull again, and then it's 5 or 6 again.
I tell you, it's hard, but ask her, what was that about? He said it was so fast, I couldn't feel it coming. That's true.
In my experience, when it comes to speed, there's a lot of psychology involved. And not just the crazy, but that a lot of your speed is determined by how your road is designed. And each road, with the straights and things of that nature, just kind of have a natural speed to them, where you feel comfortable as a driver going at a certain speed. And so there's been a lot of studies and work done in the civil engineering world to say, it's called road diets, where you try to throw trees up against the road and put a little bit of a jig in the road to make drivers be conscious of the road they're driving on, and apparently slows them down. I think you see on this study here, we put up the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit signs, right, this past month, and you've got people who probably historically driving that road, not seeing those signs, one.
Right.
But then two, I think that the road's probably not, it probably doesn't feel uncomfortable at 20 miles an hour. Probably easy enough to drive.
State Street, correct.
It does, but I mean, I've got curbs on my street and I can see them prompting it, as soon as they come down on a certain play. Even there's that area, you can hear them coming down off the hill here at City Hall and going fast. And so, I think there's a lot of that kind of plays into these aspects of speed.
Yeah, we're on State Street, that's not straight, they run from down River Street all the way up until they get to that curve. They try to see how fast they can get going from,
To the next curve.
to the curve.
Yeah, and I think even personally driving, you hit those curves sometimes and I don't want to slow down. I want to accelerate to the curve and kind of slingshot myself out, keep the speed going.
You're not from Indiana.
Yeah, right. I'm just saying, there's a lot of that stuff to it, but, and then we even see with our own street sign that, we put the flashers on for the recording sign. And, on my street, I sat out there on my porch and watched it for about an hour one day. People would see those lights from almost a block away and they'd hit the brakes and slow themselves down. So there's different, the data is the data in a sense, but there are a lot of things
I
playing in.
tell when there's an officer around, because when they come off of our street, right there, that curve on State, you can see them. Stop. Break all they break it. You can hear them almost side and tire. And every somebody, they're coming to get a ticket, or they get a ticket, so they stop. The other time is just flat out fast as they can go.
Here's the bill. Before you get to there, have somebody pulled over there now.
Chief Posey, do you have anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
And our officers are out and patrolling.
Yes, ma'am.
Question or concern?
Yeah, can I get 3 more?
What?
we're women.
This month, we had an officer, had family member pass away, had that last day, we had one that had COVID and some other disease like COVID, had him out for a while. And it's just good, we had to take another one on vacation, we have one that has to use a bunch of vacation time between now and April. So they've just, they've been doing the best they can. Every day.
Is there a problem? Do they have chores or, because we see it every night, every day, and she wants to get out and walk since she had her stroke. But I'm afraid that I have to stand at the window and watch her make sure she made it back all right, let her know. Do what? But, that's what
We've got 5 paid officers right now.
yeah.
Somebody goes on vacation, somebody's sick, and you struggle with this, it's the nature of it, and that's not making excuses for it, that's the game of playing.
But like I say, most of it's construction. We got one guy that lives down the hill where the river road is down there right by the river. In a Ford pickup truck with a wood bed on the back of it. He starts it there on the other side of the river road and goes up State Street, and he just flies to the windows in our house. It just.
Okay. Chief Settle, Fire Department report.
I don't really have anything else either. Fire marshal will be in tomorrow to do our 5-year audit. Make sure we got all of our ducks in a row. Should pass with flying colors.
Questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, no questions. Thank you, Jimmy. Building code zoning.
And the report's in there, and of course, we have some other business to cover later, but the cat report's in there as well with, she's been very busy with the cats.
Are you still tracking on Gary Edition over there?
She's been trapping in several different places around town. Yeah.
We got a message from her about a week ago that stopped his house, that had come into the council. They had trapped, I think, 12 cats.
In 1 week. Yeah.
And on camera, she had 8 additional cats that she counted that were different on her, fortunately. Had taken their phone. We're still committed to that area. There's a lot of. I got a couple calls.
Everybody is fine, I look at them every day.
Yeah. Told me that they're dropping them off again.
We also had a couple of people that Brian drafted a letter to that we sent certified, informing them of our ordinance against feeding feral cats and ordering them to stop. So.
Because I do know of, and when I spoke with a pet owner, he's lost 2 cats due to the disease that these feral cats have created.
I mean, I've never specifically said this is a health emergency or a health reason, whatnot.
Well, we have people losing their pets because, as a result of people feeding them and not them.
Persuading that way.
Yeah, 2 of them now that we know of, but.
Are we utilizing, can't think of it now, there's a billboard down there by the recycle with Snips, what is that, Snip something?
I
Yeah,
saw
she
We
that.
feed them, is she utilizing any of that
To
funds?
Morgantown to
Okay,
do that. I think she was even applying for a grant. I need to check on her.
Okay. because I think I sent you information.
Yeah. Frankly, the local vets are so busy that not very many can even take in these rescue kids. I think she has worked with Deanna Brown. She has worked in spots that we used to utilize her, but she's traveling North Central West Virginia region. Most of the cats. About $50.
Go ahead.
On the vacant structures list, I didn't see any commercial properties on there.
We have some commercial properties. There's a big section of residential, and then there's a smaller section that's on, is that in this packet?
It's something already you get a copy of her.
Yeah, I can email you my spreadsheet on it. Yeah, we do have some commercial properties on that list.
Marty, are you planning to go to the Brownfields conference this year?
I hadn't thought about it.
Well, it's in Summersville this year, and I think they're going to announce it in April. And they said that you might want to get your spot early if you plan on going. And I happened to think of you today because they talked about FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers are going to be offering a simulated disaster training for
Yeah.
responders and government officials.
Okay.
And I thought that would be kind of neat to maybe watch or participate in. And I know that's also part of the comprehensive plan.
I'll look into that tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Marty?
Welcome.
City Attorney.
All our budget season, so
Kind of delay the codification until
after we get done with that, but I think we got couple hard. I've been looking it over. I think we got a couple hard meetings to get it done and then we can be done with it. And I think there was maybe some desire to have our municipal elections start coinciding with a state primary or general election, whichever one council so chooses. I talked to a gentleman from the Secretary of State actually this afternoon, and it's looking like there would probably be some degree of charter revision and to fall in line with the whichever one you want to choose, a primary or a general. The current council's terms will either have to be shortened or extended. And I think that's a process in and of itself outside the concept of revising a charter. I don't think it's insurmountable, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be quote unquote hard, but it's just that's kind of the road we have to go down to get us on a schedule with the primary and the general election. And you don't even have to do that. That's up to you all. You got.
I'm sure they take volunteers.
And I was talking to the guy, and I mean, I think that's a political question amongst the five of you. What flavor, what taste, or what tolerance there is for number one, even wanting the election to be on the primary or the general, and then number two, which one you want it to be on. The 2026 primary, the 2026 general, the 2028 primary, the 2028 general, or none of them. So I mean, you got some time per se to think about it. We're not mandated to do that at all. I mean, that's
Well, it's
there
a
was
way to get additional voters out because the voting, as you know, last time was poor. It's also a way to provide a cost savings. And it helps out with the need for poll workers, which is a real problem in this county.
How does it affect your ballot access? Like when you control your own ballot, you have the ability to put whatever question you want on there. Does the county commission, they get to weigh in on what's on your ballot when you switch to that in their cycle?
I don't know.
I mean, that's a great advantage of keeping your own is that you kind of control that ballot. Something you decide what's on it, and you print it. And any kind of questions you have, you don't have to ask anybody permission or work with anybody else. But like the mayor said, there is a cost to it, $5,000 or whatnot. Maybe it's been the last election.
What was added to it though? Over the last recent years, other than.
Nothing,
elected officials?
nothing really, yeah. But if you want to get into questions, yeah, if you want to get into excess levies and things of that nature, that's where you have to think, there's a calculation to be made, I guess I should say.
nothing official with any of that. It was just some research done.
Legislature did entertain another bill this year. I think there's people down the legislature throwing darts at the wall every year trying to make it mandatory that we switch to the general election
Mhm.
cycle. So we may have this option for a little bit longer than the legislature may just weigh in on it and extinguish it, but just to let you know that is happening.
Because that's what they tried to do initially and it didn't pan out.
Earliest is 2026, you said.
26 or 28.
It'd be, yeah, I mean, I don't know if we'll have enough time to get it in certainly not for the primary this year. And probably not for the general, to be honest with you. So it'd probably be 26. The primary of 26 would be the earliest chance we could get on the site.
One paragraph. It doesn't matter.
Not today, not tomorrow, maybe not even this year. Who knows? That issue may come up soon or not soon. Who knows?
Okay, city clerk, you have the business license report. And city manager report.
It looks like you've got my February report, not my March. So I apologize for that. I was out of the office most of the day today with a sick child. I'll forward that to you. The biggest addition, there was a few items that got added there. I had a meeting with the street department and them alone for the most part to talk about all the status of our different works that we've got going on. And it's unfortunate for them that they, like we've said many times, they're the arms and feet of the city a lot of times. So all the extra little projects we like to do, that's who gets roped into them oftentimes. I did add a line of grants and that we're currently working on, or section that's not in this one that I'll forward to you that has some dates in it. We're working on a community development block grant application with our intern. So we're trying to target sidewalks, and I think we're probably going to target along the West Second Street Tallow corridor potentially was what we've looked at. But we'll take any ideas you want to. We haven't settled on anything yet at this point. But I think we just did some back of the envelope math, and we were looking at probably 1,000 feet roughly of sidewalks potentially that we could get monies to build with the funding cycles and the amounts allowed and all that good stuff. So anything you'd like to suggest, we'll take that into consideration. I think we'll probably try to stick with, a block. We probably won't do patchwork with it. We'll just try to fix, large sections. We haven't quite figured out whether we want to do, connectivity portions, where you have it, there's no sidewalk currently. You want to try to get a sidewalk in there to connect a section. We'll try to replace in, where we've got bad sidewalk and we want to replace it. So we're working on that this month. She's on spring break right now, so we'll hit that next week when she comes back. There's also the possibility of putting in an ARC power grant for some kind of planning exercise. And so in this past month, we have advertised and collected all the requests for proposals for the Columbia Club Cultural Center. We met with HLC this past week to interview those candidates, and we've got to make a decision here very shortly on our engineers. Then we've also have advertised right now the engineering firms for the Riverfront project. Region 7 is helping us with that application, or that process, I should say. And so I think that's where potentially maybe a Power Art grant could come in and be something we could supplement that to help with the engineering cost and planning for that riverfront and downtown project redevelopment that we're working on. So those are the big things I think in this month that we're talking about from a grant perspective. We've got the whole litany of things that we're working on. We've got some storm drains we've got to get out there and get surveyed so that we can get those replaced sometime this year. I think from the paving aspect, we didn't mention that in our street department report, but worked up a price today with JF Allen to look at Loftus and Menden, which are two streets that are in atrocious shape right now. And what we're trying to look at doing is just reclaiming the asphalt. So basically rototilling the road, rolling it back down and putting 2 to 3 inches of asphalt down on top of it to make those roads passable. And we'll probably have to do some drainage work along the sides to fix those. And so that was, I think, $30,000 is what the quote came back today from those folks. So we'll look at our budget and kind of assess what we're doing. So I think those are largely what we've got worked down to. Dee made mention of her report. Joe and I spent 2 days with Dee this past month. So February's a short month. We've only had 28, 29 days, right? You had eight weekends in there. So that's about 20, 21 working days. And we had a holiday. So 2 of those, 10% of our month we spent down at the sanitary board, and they were 2 full days working on our chart of accounts to get our PSC reporting kind of lined up with how we're going to start reporting our costs and expenditures and revenues and stuff like that. So we've had a full month. It's been very active, and we'll continue to work, and I'll take any questions you guys have. Sure.
Back, try to fix a little bit there on the water.
I think that was the intention, right? Yeah.
A little bit better.
Mhm.
Thanks for the working on that 4th Street.
Yeah, I guess we'll bring everybody up to speed on that. So that's been a lot of back and forth this past month with West Virginia American Water in regards to their utility cuts and road patching. And so I'll give you the short, sweet version. American Water seemingly does not appreciate our excavation permit or does not want to participate in that. And so they've had a lot of feet dragging and being in that process. I think at some point in the past month and a half, right, they've shown up and tried to patch some cuts with concrete, which is what we're trying to avoid due to us having to dig it up and tear up the road and have difficulty getting our pipes across the road and all that good stuff. So we requested they use asphalt, but I think at this point they've agreed to fix the trenches on 4th Street, which are part of that whole discussion, as soon as the hot mix plan is opened up, which should be in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we think. and the gas company. So, we come in this understanding that this is a new process. And I guess seemingly other utilities, the utilities don't encounter this in other places in West Virginia, but this wasn't some rule Mike and I made up in the last, 6 months. This was something that's been on our books since the '70s in our code. I think, from my experience across the country, most cities have these kinds of things where you work with the utility to identify where these cuts are made. And really what we're trying to achieve is we don't want utility cuts staying open longer than they should have to. Because then you see road failures from water infiltration in the base of the roads and things of that nature. And so we're trying to get them to play ball with us. And I think the big struggle for most of these utilities is that they've contracted out that hot mix. They're not in the hot mix paving business. And so we've had to try to really work to bring them to a point of decision to say, one, either I can get my contractor here a lot sooner, or two, I need to work with the city to get it patched and then receive a bill and pay it. And so it seems like I'm not going to speak to all their internal discussions, but it seems like there's some consternation there about that latter option, and consternation about getting their contractor here sooner. So we've really struggled to get them on board.
Like it's gonna,
Behind Larry Snyder's, yeah. Haven't fixed it yet, right? Yeah.
Biggest thing is, we go over there and use cold patch doesn't last. And then, but, right, but soon they, I talked to Chris again this morning, they're still, March, the hot patch out, so.
Yeah.
I will tell you this, but, interrupt.
Sure.
Greer and Shinston is putting down hot patch. It's like, I might say from here to Shinston, and then cold truck pick up hot mix and get back here. If I get 5 ton, I probably maybe 3 ton out of it, then I'm gonna chisel the rest of that. So I like to go to, okay.
Yeah. I think just moving forward, you've got to, we as a city or street department or whoever's running this program, we get to mid-October, we know it's getting cold and snow's going ready to fly. We've got to make sure these patches are done before the year's up and then before the hot mix plant shuts down. And that's been standard procedure everywhere else I've been. And we just don't have that habit yet. And I think this year we'll lean on that a lot harder so we're not left with a situation where you might not be ready, but you're going to have to make a big boy decision and decide what you're going to do with that road for the winter. So, yeah.
Language, then ordinance or facility structure repair. Or application.
I mean, I think the city code uses language such as, if you are going to excavate, you need to come get a permit, and that permit has X, Y, and Z on it. And one of the things on the permit is what are you doing? When do you start? When do you finish it? And you have to, another piece of the section code says or reads something to the effect of, and oh, by the way, when you excavate, you shall repair it in a manner suitable to make it in as good a shape as it was prior to your excavation. And we've interpreted that to be, we're not going to dump a bunch of concrete in there that wasn't in there before. Well, I think you can use any legal means necessary from the standpoint of going to, I suspect we can go to circuit court and get some kind of injunction on them to stop doing what they're doing and force them to get a permit or force them to not put concrete in our streets when we don't want them to. I mean, I don't think we're necessarily to that point yet, but we might be getting close.
This speaks to 2 classes of excavators. Class 1, which is your utility companies, they're supposed to place a deposit. That is their bond all the time. So they don't have to file a bond every time they dig. Your class 2 users, they're supposed to place a bond every time. So it's like, if Mr. Curtis down on 6th Street decides he's going to dig a hole out to fix something in the street or even on the sidewalk, he's supposed to come in, get an excavation permit, put a bond down for that work so that if he walks away and never fixes it, the city takes that bond to be able to repair the work that wasn't completed. The utility companies are supposed to do the same thing, but it's supposed to be a one-time bond. So if you're a user of the class 1 type, you don't have to do that every time. You put down, we'll bond one time and we basically hold that in reserve so you can do all your work.
For the year or how long?
for in perpetuity. Yeah, and so we haven't sat there and said, hey, give us your money or anything like that, but I figured that would be a bridge too far at this point in the program. But by the ordinance, you're supposed to be able to take that bond if somebody doesn't repair the road and use that as credit essentially to fix the road. We don't have that bond on hand. And so we've, in our discussions, are like, guys, either fix it or we're going to fix it and then send you a bill for it, which I think is probably fair enough. But there is a penalty, a general penalty in violation of any city ordinance where we could cite someone and haul them into municipal court. And I think we're looking at what, $100 for the first offense or something like that for our general penalty ordinance stuff. So we're not looking to do that, but that's to answer the question. Those are our options. Yeah.
Do we take pictures? Did you take pictures of all that and have that record as well?
That was a brand new street, actually, brand new paving job.
Yep. But I think what we're trying to get to long term with these companies is to use 4th Street as an example. We did not know that they were going to be digging 4th Street until they showed up and were digging it. I think I walked in that morning and said, I saw the water company go by with their excavator, Mike. And Mike said, yeah, they started digging on 4th Street. That's the notice that we were given. And so then you end up with a road cut down the middle of the crown of your road, which is probably always going to be a problem now because now you've got these 2 seams that are integrated in the crown. And I would like the option to negotiate with them in some form or fashion and say, hey, this is our street that we're maintaining long term. If you're going to destroy 50% of it or something like that, can we kick something into the kitty together to be able to just pave this road when it's done after all this work's done? But we have not seen any motivation from any of the utility companies to play that kind of ball with us. They want to stick to their contractors and whatever they're, we don't need to pay you anything more than what we are. And I get all that, but that we're left with a substandard road because of the work that's done.
No, I called the PSC with a general question of when a utility doesn't necessarily want to follow the rules of a city. And the PSC was kind of steering me away from them more towards like a court type action. Their PSC was more, the guy was kind of more along the lines of, well, we kind of deal more with rate increases and stuff like that rather than, yeah.
The other thing I'll add this, what we're trying to do with the excavating permit and stuff is talking with the utility people is give us a project of saying, okay, this year in 25, we're going to go out there and we're going to tear up this street, that street, and this street. Well, we know we don't want to blacktop that street until they're done. But the gas company came across with that. That's the only one so far that has done anything for me at all.
You're not sure. I heard that. So y'all need to get down to that alley behind my church. I'm telling you.
We'll get you.
Is that all you have, Nate?
Yes.
I've got one more.
Okay.
We was talking the other day about the about a city building, which I know it's gonna take some work to get that done, but I'll try to get maybe a contract.
On the list this week, right?
I had one guy took vacation, one got sick, and got another guy went sick home this morning. So guys, I'm down 3 people. You guys are obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty tough to work on a culvert down in Debbie's board that had, I think we put in almost 300 feet. And I had old 35-gallon drums, oil drums. Put back in there, Billy's been here 20-some years. And he don't ever remember that being put in, so we got culverts down there made out of oil drums. That I'm having to repair.
Yeah. We're not repairing them, we're replacing them, right?
Money must have been tight.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
I don't want to complain or sound like I make excuses for everybody, but there's a lot going on with limited manpower. No, I think they're doing the best they can to juggle stuff. And really, Brian and I have said it since we've been here and as a joke, but I think we're getting at points like we really just need 6 months to kind of catch our breath and do the things that we've said we're going to do and we want to do. And sounds bad, but that's where we're kind of at. We just have a backlog of things we need to work on and not had the list added to, but
you know where that pipe is there.
Okay, we didn't do that one. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
Painted black.
kind of wobbly.
I thought maybe we'd included that. We'll have to go back and look. It's been a while. Yeah. Yeah. And right now we've only purchased enough fence to do those two downtown there that we wanted to make sure our fencing was the right type and yeah.
Can we put, and I'm pretty sure it's cheap, can we put like the lighting on every so often on those, give a little bit more light through there? You know what I'm talking about? I think it's
The
like
solar lighting?
the solar lighting, yeah,
On the fences?
yeah.
Send me what you want. I'm not real familiar with it, but possibly.
I mean, I've seen it up.
Okay.
It's so-
Yeah, send me what you think it looks like. I'm not familiar with it, but
And what I'm talking about- Remember, what about the gateway signs? Remember we talked about putting the solar lighting in those? I think Jane Lou has that, right, Ray? Their sign, that solar
Yeah,
lighting.
they're cutting edge up there in Jane Lou.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, that's on our list too, is the get the gateway signs. Yeah, where it doesn't look like we're halfway abandoned. We want to get our Weston signs up, and so we're working on that as well. It's just a lot going on. All right, we appreciate it.
Was that everything, Nate?
Okay. I don't think so. Let me send you let's just have a discussion by email about that. I'll send you the updated list that I have and you can look through that and make sure nothing's triggered in your mind. Yeah. We've got a lot of things we need to button up, like up at the top of the cemetery. We've got some work up there by Reservoir where we had that turnaround. We've got to get that cleaned up for that neighbor. And there's just a lot of little things like that that are death by 1,000 cuts for these guys. So that's what we're working on.
When you mentioned the sidewalks in the 2014 comprehensive plan, they identified 4th Street because it was a route for school kids. Yeah.
Yep. And that's the one where we're prioritizing, I think. So my anticipation is, I guess with paving, we had said we were going to do 4th Street there in front of the middle school. And I think we have every intention to do that as soon as we can. You know, the one where we've got kind of the speed bump thing going on there where we paved it. Court, sorry. Yep, sorry. 4th and Court, that intersection. Take a right, head towards 3rd. That's that section of Court. I think Loftus and Mendon at this point are probably going to take higher priority than that just to try to get those. And then, yeah, when we roll over the calendar, the fiscal year calendar year, then that would come back into focus as a paving project. But I mean, if you don't believe me on Mendon and Loftus, go up there and drive them and make sure you have pretty good clearance on your vehicle. We just need to get those taken care of and try to put those to bed. So.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, keep in mind that because we are a hubcap and particularly an on-track community, it was discussed with us today that they will provide planning and design services for us with probably a 30-day turnaround.
Okay. Well, and I jumped around a little bit, Herb, when you talked about our Lively Park and the sidewalk there. I think when we pave that section there in front of the middle school, we'll probably look at maybe doing that section because we're gonna have to cut the sidewalk and the curb all kind of merged together there at Lively, and so we're gonna probably take care of that road. We've got some drainage bins there that if we're gonna have ADA crosswalks, we're gonna have to look at those and see what we can do there. So we're probably talking about disturbing the road quite a bit, and I think that would be part of that project too. We'll probably just try to pave all that intersection and fix the middle school's entry there a little bit too. So that's a big project for us, and that'll be. Yeah, but it's got drainage basins on both sides. I think one of them, the ADA ramp, is a drainage basin. It's got the manhole on it and everything else. So you got to make that work. Either we got to kick the sidewalk off the drainage basin and make our drop down beside the inlet, or we got to move the inlet and figure out a different way to get water in there. So corner of center, yeah. So it's tricky.
Okay.
On our
I'll
list.
entertain a motion to approve all of the department reports. It's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to old business. I'll entertain a motion to have the second reading of ordinance 2024-01, creating the Weston Land Reuse Agency by title only.
I'll move to have the second reading of ordinance 2024-1, creating the Weston Land Use Agency by starting on.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion? Voting by roll call.
Councilwoman Sherry Rogers,
Yes.
Councilman Stephen White,
Yes.
Councilwoman Debbie Gump,
Yes.
Councilman Herb Curtis. Ordinance 2024-01, ordinance creating the Land Reuse Agency, second reading by title only.
This time I'll entertain a motion to accept or reject ordinance 2024-01, creating the Weston Land Reuse Agency.
I'll move to approve the ordinance 2024-1, reading first, second reading of the ordinance creating the Western Land Use Agency.
Awesome.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion? Voting by roll call again.
Councilwoman Sherry Rogers, Councilman Stephen White,
Yes.
Councilwoman Debbie Gump,
Yes.
Councilman Herb Curtis.
Okay, motion carries. Ordinance 2024-02, municipal fee and first due fire fee. This would be a first reading. Did you want to discuss that? Any city manager before?
I'm gonna put my bulletproof jacket on, so whatever you guys want to do.
Just and worked on it before you did.
Yes.
What, you want to go over those changes then?
First off, I think to such size an email, and I had concerns about the vacant lots.
And now it's page 4 I'm looking at, but it's under the definitions. It's in alphabetical order down there, vacant lot. There's a definition that I concocted up. And it was my understanding that if a vacant lot in and of itself gets charged, but if you have a vacant lot that's attached to a piece of property that you own and that property has a building on it, then that vacant lot does not get charged. And then if you have a vacant lot attached to that vacant lot, as long as you can trace your as long as you can jump from vacant lot to vacant lot back to your lot with a building on it, those lots don't get charged. I think that was what I took from the
The lot between the other lot.
Oh, yeah. So hold on. You own this lot. You own this lot, and there's a vacant lot in between that you own.
You're like in the same block.
You're on the same block. There may be a house in between your two lots. That's not your house. But you have this lot over here that's not connected to you. But you're.
Oh,
in the
not
same-
okay. You're paying a fee on this lot over here, but you have this vacant one here with some kind of intervening owner, if for lack of a better word. Okay, that is not under this vacant lot definition. It can be, or we can take vacant lots all out. I hate to say, I don't mean to sound smart. I don't care either way. It's fine with me. It is. Sure.
And since we're looking at this. I'd like to remove the vacant lot and then take a look at next year. Looking at it. I also don't want to inhibit people from purchasing. Way, but it's also another employee time to research.
Sure.
It's not within this.
It is, there are many back tax tickets to some of these lots.
Saying,
No, no.
I'm saying as far as charging for vacant lot, if it's a lot that attaches to a home, maybe he's saying what would be under.
Yeah. The vacant lot gets charged in this manner. You have a piece of property here with a building on it. You're getting charged whatever fee you're getting charged. You have a vacant lot here adjacent to it, touching it. This does not get charged as anything. You have another vacant lot attached to this one. You can piggyback off this one through this one to your vacant lot. None of those get charged. Now that's different than Debbie's scenario where you have
What about this scenario? We've got commercial owner, owns a commercial building, we've got a vacant lot right next to it. Same commercial owner, they get charged in that scenario?
I don't think so.
Debbie, I think our drive or your drive is for residential folks to be protected, right? But even in our current scheme, right, the commercial lots are, they're gonna be out from under.
Yep. And this is you all's meeting and to get this thing implemented, I think we need to have a first reading tonight. But if you all want to take vacant lot out and reassess it in a year,
Yeah.
Well, I think we're using real world examples to kind of pick up for everybody.
That's what I'm saying.
We're trying to make sure.
Fit the structure. And so that-
Yeah. But I think you do definitely, the purpose of this, if you want to try to capture some of those costs, and want people to realize costs that they're getting away with in a sense right now by not paying a fee.
Well, people living in Hawaii and the property here, not.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna have to move in a different direction if you want to get results.
Sure.
You know.
Gee, I hate to say, I agree with Herb. Yeah, very much so.
Right, can we alter this structure, you think, down the road by?
I mean, I think you can amend this thing anytime you want to.
Well, tell us what you added, because we worked on a different. what
I
did
added
you add?
I added the definition of vacant lot,
Oh, okay.
and that's on page 4. I don't know what page it is in your packet, but the actual ordinance is page 4 and 5.
You see it. Okay.
But it does not cover it, how I described it to you, how you piggyback from lot to lot back to your building or back to your structure. They're all connected. And that's described in the definition here. But when you have a lot and then somewhere else you have a vacant lot, that vacant lot is getting charged under this definition.
$66.
Is that the only change, basically,
Yeah,
Brian?
if you, let's say we scratch out vacant, I think we changed the 2250 to $25 under the,
That's right.
yeah. I think that was it.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to have the first reading of ordinance 2024-02 municipal fee and first due fire fee. By title only. There. Okay, it's been moved and second. Any discussion? Voting by roll call.
Councilwoman Sherry Rogers,
Yes.
Councilman Stephen White,
Yes.
Councilwoman Debbie Gump. Yes. Councilman Herb Curtis.
Motion carries. Go ahead.
Ordinance 2024-02, ordinance of the city of Weston, replacing all prior ordinances related to the municipal service and creating a first fire fee, first reading by title only.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept or reject the first reading of ordinance 2024-02 municipal fee and first due fire fee.
I move to accept.
I'll second. It's been moved and second. Any discussion? Voting by roll call.
Councilwoman Sherry Rogers,
Yes.
Councilman Stephen White,
Yes.
Councilwoman Debbie Gump.
Councilman Hurst.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next, new business awarding of demolition bids for 369 West Second, 313 East Second, and 240 Wright Street, 258 Brown Avenue, 220 Arnold, 230 Wilson Street, and 828 Winter Avenue.
There's a bid comparison sheet in there along with the bids themselves to make it easy for you. And I have a recommendation if you want it.
Yes, please.
I would like to just, Astor is the low bid on all of them except for Wilson Street. But if they're gonna do the one on Arnold, which is right there.
Right.
I would recommend just give them all to Astor, and they have assured me they can get them all done by the end of the month, which is critical because that's when my time frame's up.
Move to approve the bids for Astor Oilfield on 220 Arnold, 230 Wilson, 828 Winter, 258 Brown, 369 West Second Street, 313 East Second Street, 240 Wright Street.
Is there a second?
Next.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Any discussion? All in, yep, sure.
Some of you council members might be looking around saying, hey, I didn't get a house on this list. We did use our priority list, but these were also ones that we were able to get quick agreement to get in and get them inspected for asbestos because we're up against the deadline for the $300,000. And so this list was the ones we could get out and torn down as quickly as we can because we've got till the end of March to get these down and get our money expended or we're going to lose access to those grant funds. So just wanted to give you a little bit of background on it's kind of back there in the woods. Right, but those are ownership issues that we've tried to avoid.
We'll just use all of
Yep.
our grant funds.
That's the intention. We're probably if our accurates or estimates hold accurate, we're probably going to use a couple thousand of our own dollars to make sure the grant's expended.
Okay, we have a
24.
motion and a second to approve Astor Oilfield. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, awarding of mowing bid for cemeteries to Dave Taylor.
Does he have a business? A license, a business license, and he insured and all of that, yes. Because usually they name their business.
I think he's Dave Taylor Handyman.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And
That
you
was
have
business.
recommendations for us?
He's the only one that bid the cemeteries.
Yeah.
And he's the one that finished up last year for us. So,
Or the other?
Could you speak up a little bit?
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, he's the only one that bid the cemeteries this year, but he's also the one that finished up last year when we fired the first contractor.
So
So,
he's familiar with the work.
yeah, and I think he did a good job.
I do too. Okay, what do you need, Mayor?
Question, I thought we were turning this over to the cemetery,
We still have to approve it.
but they're gonna take care of it.
Money.
Yeah, I think the reason you guys are approving is because they don't have the funds to expend it. We're expending general fund dollars to cover the cost of the cemetery mowing. So that's mine. Jody, did you bring your sheet with you? Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
It's, in front of you, you have a. Somewhere in front of you. You have a spreadsheet, looks like this, says mowing at the fiscal year 25 budget, no, actually, I'll have this.
Figures.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get a little bit ahead of myself here. I was gonna talk about this in the budget a little bit, but we'll go ahead and talk about it right now. You can see that based on contracted mowing, we're budgeting $70,000 in contracted mowing in the fiscal year 25 budget across all departments. That includes the cemeteries, that includes the riverbank, which is very steep and hard to get done. And so just so you know that we're looking at these kind of things and we're keeping an eye on them, we did look at, well, what would it cost if we tried to bring this in-house? And bringing it in-house, I think the biggest challenge with that is I don't think one person can get all that done.
The cemetery in particular, I think it's 8 acres, is that right? And you're working around all those stones. And so that's one person's most of their week already. So I laid this out as a proposal. Well, what if we had 1.5 people? Well, 1.5 people will cost at least $73,000, close to $74,000. And then those 1.5 people need equipment. And depending on what equipment you think they need, if you even got them the equipment to do the state riverbank, which would be a specialty piece of equipment, you could be looking at $90,000 in upfront costs to get the equipment. So at this time, I'm still recommending contracted mowing as the best route forward. But we are getting really close to that tipping point. I think but one of the other things I think is worth considering is that when you hire somebody full time, PEIA is a huge unknown in the future. And so even though we're kind of right there at that tipping point, for me, it's still not worth it to go over because you just don't know what's going to happen with PEIA next year. But I just want to let you know that we're keeping an eye on that, and we're always considering, is this still the best option to move forward? Based on the numbers I have, I still think it is the best option forward. So,
Thank you.
welcome.
Would council like to take action on the awarding of the mowing bid
Sure.
to Dave Taylor?
I'll move to approve.
It's been moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mowing of Route 19 lot, Riverfront and Riverbanks and Lively Park to Epps Property Maintenance.
Marty, your recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, that's our recommendation. He was the low bidder on those properties, and he's familiar and has the capability of doing the riverbanks and stuff.
And
They're gonna mow weekly on our city parks in the spring.
I think did our bid still say every 2 weeks on it, but I think we had a line in there. Could be more often if we dictated during the growing season.
In the springtime, they definitely
We're
need it.
gonna have to keep an eye on our budget though.
Well, we have to be within our ordinance though.
We'll
make it very exciting. We have to be a good example and a good neighbor.
okay, if council is ready to take action, I'll entertain a motion to approve Epps Property Maintenance for the parks, Holt property.
So
And then we're on Route 19 lots.
yeah, Route 19 for apps. Starts with Route 19 lot for apps.
And does that motion also include non-compliance lots to Robinson Lawn Care?
Yeah.
And if they fail to perform, awarding that to Epps?
Or if he can't keep up with them, use apps as a backup. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. I'll move to approve what Kim said.
Okay. There's okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Going to the riverbanks real quick, because I had that on my list here. Is there any way that we can get
Yeah.
the riverbanks cleaned up from the West Second Street all the way down to the Mid Avenue Bridge?
By the bus garage.
Yeah, all the way down through there. They used to cut it. I mean, years and
It's
years
not in
ago.
our regular mowing bid, but I think we're gonna try at least clean it up once this year. We've been talking about doing it the one time that,
And Bill, if they don't clean it, send a bill to the owners of it.
The one issue that we have with the property that Department of Highways is responsible for, they just flat refuse to go to it.
They won't pay it.
we did buy just a new brush hog attachment for our skid steer. That has an arm and stuff like that, so we're gonna give a shot at it with that stuff, try to keep that stuff down. But we'll see what the limitations of that piece of equipment are and then work with probably local contractor to get that once.
Yeah, the Guardians of the West work, can they assist with any of that?
I don't think they have the manpower or the budget. frankly.
The state used to take care of these things. What
Yeah,
happened?
this, yeah.
They have a relationship with them to take care of these things. We don't have it.
And I think they have used some of the corrections folks to help out. And we also just want to try to get looped into that, see if we can find some people that will do that.
A lot of that's so steep, you've got to have like a brush hog on the end of a backhoe or whatever to, because you can't stand on it. It's,
'Cause I
And
know
that-
I'm sorry. Yeah.
if they get that knotweed kind of early before it gets grown up 7, 8 foot high. Yeah, once it
There's
gets that
trees up
big, it's
there.
almost like cutting saplings.
Cause I know they used to fish a lot down there where Bob Golden is, right in there, and it's so high. Of course, Garton used to keep that mowed.
Yeah.
On that side of the bank. And that's not kept mowed.
Yeah, he
Farmers market.
sold part of that.
I'm so excited the
Maybe
farmer.
volunteer
market's coming back.
That's what the state does.
Yep.
We'll try to figure out a way to get it.
Okay, next we have Potesta, $100,000 from the ARPA funds for the Phase 2 sludge removal match.
We had that allotted earlier, didn't we? It's always been in there, correct?
Yeah, this is not
Always
anything,
Been budgeted.
not any
for.
kind of surprise in our, where we've shared via email and different things like that, our allotment, it's always been earmarked for this project.
Right.
And so just to make everybody aware, Potesta's carried about $150,000 worth of cost right now with the preliminary engineering report. By contract, they were not to get paid till the project was funded, was the language. And so I think at this point, we're not funded. We're pretty well there. All the funds have been committed. They've asked for some sort of payment because they've been carrying this now for almost 3 years from a cost perspective. So I think it's fair. If they were to walk away tomorrow or we were to walk away from them tomorrow, we would owe them for work completed, which they value at $147,000. So I think it's fair to cut this check and move forward.
I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Voting by roll call.
Councilwoman Sherry Rogers.
Yes.
Councilman Stephen White,
Yes.
Councilwoman Debbie Gump,
Yes.
Councilman Herb Curtis.
Okay, motion carries. Next, spring cleanup dates, April the 8th through April 12th, 24.
I move to approve.
Also.
It's been moved in second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, farmer's market site agreement, starting date, May 3rd.
You want to speak to that, Annie?
I am very excited about this coming back to downtown.
I don't know. It's Lars to here. Apparently there's going to try to be an attempt to start a farmer's market down on Water Street in the parking lot.
Oh, is that where it's gonna be?
Yeah.
Cool.
And there's some kind of agreement that we're trying to fix up with them, and I'll kind of work with Laura a little bit on it. And generally, I think the general concept is Fridays from the proverbial 5 to 10. The farmer's market's going to be able to quote unquote hold a farmer's market, and people can come down and peddle their wares and review wares and whatnot. But not so much the wares, maybe food and food products.
First of all, we need to be mindful of time Easter employees and their parking. Second of all, since it's going to 10, I'm not sure where our lighting, but we might need access to that lighting.
I'll stop you there for a second. The farmers markets opens their doors at 6. From 5 to 6, they can set up whatever they want to set up. So that hopefully alleviates some parking issues. But at 8 o'clock, they shut down. And so there's 2 hours of cleanup after that. So in theory, there's not going to be anybody buying anything there from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock of an evening. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. So we're really excited about this new partnership with the Lewis County Farmers Market and incorporating the AmeriCorps program with that and providing a market manager to help oversee the market. And we're looking at this more as a event and a family gathering opportunity. So with the city's partnership and the AmeriCorps program, we'll be able to secure entertainment or activities, bringing in some health educators to, like with partnerships with WVU Extension. They've got some really fun programs that they've already said that they would be interested in bringing to the market once a month. And you know, basically the River Street, that parking lot's already being utilized for festivities. So I think really piggybacking off of that is going to be a bonus.
Sounds
Questions?
good.
Is that every Friday?
It'll be every Friday from May the 3rd until August 31st.
My only concern is when we have Fireman's Festival.
Oh, it's in the agreement, it is stated that, you know, we do have the option to cancel any farmers markets that are affected by any of our, you know, scheduled activities or events. So
One last point I want to make about this is that as we negotiated with the farmers market, I think we've got a group of people in there who are really seeking to come to Weston, but there was a lot of reticence because I think of past relationships and their lack of home, and their desire is to find a permanent location that they can point to as the Lewis County Farmers Market. And so this is a 5-year agreement. I think you read through it, you've got plenty of ways to terminate it if something goes wrong or something like that. But I think initially the term was 10 that was floated, and we said,
they
well,
were really
yeah.
definitely,
So we got it down to 5, and that wasn't trying to get out from under anything. I just think that's a more reasonable time frame to commit to. But I do want you guys to be aware of that they're taking in their mind, they're taking a chance on Weston to bring the farmers market back in here, and I hope that we can find ways to support them as we move forward to try to keep them here best we can.
and also think about the longevity of this market and really consider including this farmers market as a great hub for the riverfront property in the park area that everyone is really excited about. It would be a great location for a hub and an outdoor kitchen and
All
yeah.
kinds of things.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Laura. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the farmers market site agreement.
I moved to approve.
I'll say.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next budget presentation. Budget presentation.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.
See you guys. Thanks for coming out.
All right, you should all have a document looks like this. The goal of this presentation, so you know that we have a budget meeting scheduled on March 18th. So my goal tonight is to let you know some of the things that we've been thinking about, and some of the things that and what you'll see proposed at the 18th, so that you have time to chew on them between now and then. You're not seeing them for the first time on the night that I'm asking you to approve them. And so I'm not asking you to take any action on this proposed budget tonight. But I am asking you to think about it and be in touch with me over the next 2 weeks if you have feedback or thoughts on anything in particular. So you'll notice that there's 3 columns. The first column is the budget that we're currently executing, which is fiscal year 24 revision 4. The second column, the middle column, is really the column that matters here. It's the column that I'm going to bring to you on the 18th, and that is the proposed budget. The proposed budget assumes what I have to assume, which is that the schedule of municipal fees will stay the same as it has been, because that is what is true right now. And it's what I'm assuming will be true on the 18th is the current schedule of municipal fees. And then the fiscal year 25 hopeful budget assumes that the ordinance, which you had a first reading of tonight, will eventually be passed and will take effect. I don't imagine it'll take effect by March 18th when we have to pass our budget. So it's my intention to bring you the budget that assumes the current municipal fee schedule. So first thing on that page 1, first thing to notice is property taxes. Our property taxes revenue will go up by about $7,000 this year. That's related to assessed values going up. One thing that I wanted to call out related to that, you might hear at some point that the county is seeing a larger change in their tax revenues. And that is because of oil and gas valuations, which we don't have in the city. The state largely controls oil and gas valuations. And there was a big leap across the whole state this year with oil and gas valuations. And so you might hear at some point that that's had a more than minor impact on the county's budget. And unfortunately, that doesn't impact us. So when you hear that, you'll have the context for why that is. And then going down this middle column, which is what I'm going to focus on, the proposed budget, you'll notice that account 341 municipal fees is still there because we're assuming that's the case. And then just looking forward to that fiscal year 25 hopeful budget, you see that I've removed municipal fees entirely and replaced it with accounts 351, which is police protection fees, account 352, which is fire protection fees, and account 355, which is street protection fees. And so altogether, the hopeful budget looks about $760,000 different than the current budget, the current proposed budget. $760,000 is the net difference. And a quick note about that, because I want to explain, if you think that we're raising $300,000 in municipal fees, which is a little bit more than we're raising, but we'll make the numbers easy. And we'll say 100,000 of that is for fire department. Fire department has a $450,000 budget. Then what you have is taxes and other things are subsidizing the rest of the fire department budget right now to the tune of $350,000. In this hopeful budget, the fire department budget is basically entirely covered by fire fees. And so you no longer have that subsidy from the taxes and the other things. And so that frees up other areas of the budget too. And I want to offer that explanation because you'll see in the hopeful budget more things than just police, street, and fire change. And that's why that is. So if you're thinking, how does raising police, street, and fire fees cause code enforcement to go up? Or that's how that happens is fire department in particular in the hopeful budget would be entirely covered by its fees. Yeah. Yeah, and so what I will say with the fire fees is because we're entering the first due area, there's a little bit of unknown there in the first year. But yeah, to your point, it has a solid stream of revenue then. It's not dependent on yep, exactly. All right. Okay, moving on to, I'm going to skip over pages 3 and 4. That's the summary of expenditures. And I'm going to go over those in a little bit of detail. So I'm not going to go over the summary. So we're going to skip straight to page 5. Fiscal year 25 proposed for mayor's office. You see, I'm proposing a little bit of an increase there. It's not actually an increase right now when the mayor travels or she goes to conferences or things. We usually bill related expenses to City Hall. And this year I'm recommending that we move that into mayor's office. So that's not really a new expense. That's me refining where we're putting things and where we're budgeting things. But you can see that stays the same across the proposed budget and the hopeful budget. City council in the proposed budget is at a little over 12,000. In the hopeful budget, you'll see it's at 14,000. If you go down there in city council and you look at lines 341 and 568, you see that currently you have $2,000 budgeted. In the proposed, there would still be $2,000 budgeted. What that line is for things like your nameplates, but then also when you direct money to outside organizations, like giving $1,000 to Lewis County First for golf carts. And so in the fiscal year 25 hopeful budget, and so you've historically usually had about $2,000 there that you can use throughout the year. In the fiscal year 25 budget, I'm recommending that get raised to $4,000. So across, I think all personnel, I'm recommending usually a $500 raise, except with a few exceptions, and I'll talk about those. And so you see that in city manager, and I think that's the only change in the city manager department budget that I'm recommending. Finance department budget, it splits over 2 pages. I'm sorry about that. One major reduction this year, of about, a little more than $30,000, I think, in the finance department budget. Currently, we have 3 personnel, budgeted in finance department. There's the finance manager, the municipal fees clerk, and the administrative assistant. I'm recommending the complete removal of the administrative assistant. And then I'm also recommending a little bit of a rework of the municipal fees clerk. Kind of just a retitling to assistant finance director. My goal is still the same. I do think that that program needs another person and it needs assistance to be successful. But how do I put this? What I don't want to find myself in is a position where, well, I don't pay bills. I'm the municipal fees clerk, and I don't do that. I'm the municipal fees clerk. Finance manager does everything, so that I think that it would be a better title to have assistant finance manager. But the primary goal would be focus on municipal fees. And then also, so then that person can be trained in that entire role. So if I'm crossing Main Street and get hit by a bus, pension reimbursements still get made. So I think, and then the only other change in finance department would be in the hopeful budget. There's a pretty big change in postage, because that's what would be necessary, for the first 2 fire edition. So. City clerk, you can see there again, we're recommending $500, increases. And no other big changes in city clerk. Municipal court, so we're on page 7 now. Big change to municipal court there is you see line 230, contracted services / jailing has been added to the proposed budget for $2,000. As the municipal court becomes more and more functioning, they're getting ready to utilize the power that they've always had, which has been jailing, but they never before had a budget to utilize that power. So I'm recommending that we budget $2,000 there, so that if Judge Durango wants to pull that tool out, he can. City attorney, let's see, I don't think I'm recommending level funding there, no changes. Regional Development Authority, no changes. Building and code now on page 8, fiscal year 25 proposed. The first thing you'll notice is that I've added an official feline control officer. Right now, there's that temp budget that we've been using to justify the feline control officer. But I think starting next year, we just call that what it is, which is the feline control officer. Related to that, you see travel going way up, because the code enforcement officer has a vehicle himself. He doesn't really use his travel line, but there is travel related to the feline control officer. And then in contracted services, you see the addition now of feline spay and neuter for $2,500. So those are 3 new additions related to that new program. You can see in proposed that demolition services, which is 230,601, is at $50,000. What that is, that's a reset. You'll remember that we started the year out at $50,000 this year. And then as we've gotten reimbursements, we've upped that. And so in revision 4, you see we're at 136,965. But that's related to the grant. So that 50,000 in the fiscal year 25 proposed budget, is basically just a reset. There is the opportunity you'll see in the fiscal year 25 hopeful budget to increase the demolition services to 90,000. Keep moving, planning and zoning, no changes. Elections, I'm recommending that we retain an election budget. Basically, there are 2 ways that annexation happens, and it's voluntary or election. So I think that we should keep that tool in the tool belt. And then after that, on page 9, you see the addition of a new line, which is public grounds / tree board, account 567. The tree board, right now is one of our higher functioning boards in that it's having its regular meetings, and they've requested a $2,000 budget next year. And I'm recommending that they have that. Okay, moving on to page. What was that? Not yet. That's 750. We're getting there. Um, page 10, fiscal year 25 proposed, looking down City Hall. I did not go through individually and calculate what I anticipate the increases to PEIA are. Instead, what I did is under account 105 there at the very end, you see PEIA increases, and it's budgeted at $13,000. $13,000 right now is what I anticipate the net impact of the PEIA changes to be this year. Between now and the 18th, I will go through and work that number out into the individual PEIA numbers so that you can see how it impacts individual departments and individual employees. But for right now, I said $13,000 is what I'm anticipating that change to be.
If that continues to rise, are we gonna consider maybe an 80-20 split? I don't know if we can, I mean, because they're gonna go up and up and up. I mean, that's,
Mhm.
and I don't know if I hate to bring feed to that person.
Yeah.
Or
I
other
mean,
options.
Can
We
I?
may have to look.
Yeah, we have to look at something. And I think that I think there's a lot of options to look at. If I can, table that real quick, I'll let Nate speak to that a little bit more.
We don't have to
Um,
discuss it tonight. It's just.
Yeah,
We've got to
It's
find,
everywhere.
we've got to find a method, I think, to get our employees from Plan A, which is the premium plan, to Plan C, which is the high deductible plan. And I think that other municipalities have found ways to incentivize. It's a choice by the employees per PIA, but they've found ways to incentivize that, which comes out finding savings for both the employer and the employee. And I think that's
Yeah.
that's on our list. As soon as this budget's passed, to say open enrollment starts in May, we've got to get something to you guys the 1st of April for consideration.
yeah.
Because I think we can't snap our fingers, but the 80-20 thing may be a carrot or a stick, however you want to look at it, to say, how do we want to encourage or incentivize employees to go certain directions we want them to go? That's-
Well,
It's the state would find a new period.
Yeah, I just think I'll put on my political hat here for a second. When Obamacare passed back in 29 or whatever, 2009 or whenever, I remember seeing a chart saying, yeah, here's our healthcare savings over the next 10 years. And at the end, there was this big at the end of it. And I think that's what we're seeing. I know a lot's changed since then, but I think that these costs are just going to continue to explode as a nation. We're
Yep.
going to see it as people retire and things of that nature. So we've
And
got to find ways to adapt.
couple other things to consider about that. We are not required to use PEIA. We can choose to use another carrier. The problem with that is the non-state side of PEIA is closed, which means if we leave PEIA, we never go back. They won't let us back. They slam the door in our face and say sayonara. So we do have the option to use another carrier. But from what I've seen, PEIA is still cheaper than those other carriers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so another quick note about the high deductible plan, because Oak Hill is one community that I've been in contact with their finance manager a lot because they're on the high deductible plan and they really, really like it. And the reason is the high deductible plan allows you the opportunity to give your employees a health savings account and to match deposits into that health savings account. And so I did the math on this the other day because I had a wife who had a C-section and a son who had open heart surgery. And I said, how would I have fared? And depending on what the city was willing to put into that HSA, I would have come out equal or maybe even a little bit better had I had the Plan C with a well-funded HSA. So, I mean, it just kind of depends. And the city can provide a well-funded HSA and still come out at lower expense to the city than what we're currently doing. So that's why that is on the table for discussion. But it's a change and change is really hard. City Hall utilities is going up because utility rates are keep going up. Let's see a few other things. Raven Rock or other IT, as you see it listed there, is going up a little bit. Our IT services have been costing a little bit more, and I'm anticipating that once the cameras are in full swing, they're going to continue to cost more. And something that Nate and I have been in conversation about is that we're probably going to start bidding that service out in the future because it's getting to be quite a hefty chunk. I think a few years ago it was 6,000, and it's just slowly climbed up there. So it's getting to that bid out point.
And I'll mention about the Raven Rock or Lynx, or as they're called now. that number looks a little bit scary. A lot of those costs are passed through costs. So like each month we get a $400 bill for Microsoft Office, or I think it's 265 for the use of the Office suite amongst our 25 licenses in the city. Our email hosting, that's not, it's just a direct pass through cost from Gmail, the client. That's multiple $100s a month. And so some of those costs are just built into having computer services. Those things cost money in this day and age. And so that's not all going to links. We just categorize it in that same category. And those things have continued to go up over time.
And then I'm on page 11 now. One thing that I want to point out is that if you look at the proposed column for City Hall, the total is 575. And then the hopeful column, you see the total is 537. And you think, boy, how does City Hall go down in that scenario? What's going on there is the way that we receive our receipts from PEIA is basically it's not broken down by department, but we can request a spreadsheet where it breaks it down by employee. So we would have to go through and figure out what employees in every department if we wanted to expense it by department. We've never done that because it wasn't worth the time. We said we're just going to expense it in City Hall, which is what a lot of cities do. But if we have a substantial fire fee, it starts to make sense to say, okay, I'll take the 10 minutes to go and figure out how much needs to be expensed to fire department. And so when you see in the hopeful budget that City Hall goes down, that's why, because in the hopeful budget, PEIA for the fire department gets moved to the fire department so that it can be captured by those fire fees. Transfers and reimbursements, that's where we budget a rainy day contribution, and I'm recommending level funding there. Contingencies, that's the line where I used to balance the budget this year. So we usually recommend 25,000 a year. This year I recommended 25, 27, because that's where I balance the budget. And then you see in the hopeful budget, because the hopeful budget looks so different, I'm recommending a larger contingency line. Just because when you have that much change in one year, it's good to give yourself some wiggle room. Moving on to page 12, police department. You see in both columns reflected that new pay scale that you approved last month. And I don't think there were any other massive changes in police department in the proposed budget. You do see that in the hopeful budget, there is a little bit more in capital outlay. The goal there is to get our cruiser lease paid off a little bit quicker if we can. If we decide to go that route with the municipal fees. Otherwise, oh, I'm sorry, there were a couple other changes I forgot about. Canine services. We used to have canine services split out between 3 different lines. We had 223 canine vet services. We had 341 canine supplies, and we had 350 canine expenses. Our canine expenses are not that high to justify being in three different pots. And so they're all consolidated now down to 350, where there's $5,000. And based on what we're seeing this year, that should be enough to cover that. There's a few other things you can see that got reduced because the gun safe was purchased, so we don't have to purchase that again. But most. All right. Moving forward to fire department. Not a lot of changes in the proposed fire department budget in the fiscal year 25 proposed, which is what I'm bringing to you March 18th. Basically just those $500 raises for personnel. And then there's a few reductions in other places. We expect that we might have the ladder truck paid off by the end of this year. And so, but then in the fiscal year 25 hopeful budget, there's a few things I want to say about that. So one, that's there's a lot of change. There's a lot of changes there. So you see that there's the addition of new firemen. But then also if you skip ahead to page 16, there's also the addition of covering these other expenses that we've not had to cover before. Right now, the VFD covers a lot of the expenses that it takes to protect our whole region with fire protection. We cover a lot of those expenses through fundraisers like the Gun Bash. It's our goal that fundraisers should be extra and we should be able to cover the minimum expenses that it takes to convey fire protection to the area through fire fees. So this department is the department that sees the most massive changes under the hopeful budget. The other thing I'll add is that as you go through this budget, you'll see that there are things that are italicized. And it's like the addition of the new firemen and the addition of their PEIA and the addition of their CPRB. And those things are italicized because those are sort of our play it by ear additions. So reaching out into first due area, we don't quite know what to expect there. So we kind of have this number. It's like, okay, we can do everything we're doing, 450,000. And then we watch as that number grows on the revenue side, and we start to really understand where we're at and how we can improve our service. So in just the proposed budget, you're at about $16,000 lower than you were last year, because of the savings. Yeah. And that's in the proposed budget that assumes the current municipal fee scheme. But then in the hopeful budget that assumes the new municipal fee scheme, you're at about $500,000 higher, which is hopeful. But it also, the sad thing about that is that it doesn't actually get us to a point that we're completely compliant. Because I think to get there, if I'm right, Jimmy, we would have to have 4 guys on duty at a time. And that hopeful budget gets us to having 2, gets us from having 1 to having 2, but fully compliant would be having 4. And so, and then, like I said, we're kind of looking at the number that I've projected is a hopeful number. But we're going to kind of have to watch that revenue as it comes through the year and say, all right, well, we've hit this milestone, so we can add another, and we've hit this milestone, so we can add another. Unless we get a FEMA grant that covers several new bodies all at once, then that would change the dynamic and the speed a little bit, which is something that Jimmy's been working on. So we're optimistic about that too. But years, yeah. And if we should end up in a scenario where we are raising more in fire fees than what we're expending in general fund because we have the FEMA grant for 3 years covering, then basically what happens is that those fire fee monies roll over into a capital expenditure account for the fire department. So that money still gets tied to the fire department long term. I don't see that happening. I don't think that's going to be a real big issue. But there is a mechanism that the state auditor's office expects us to put in place should that happen.
We got 3 years in the past, involved with million new costs raises as far as for cost of services for the public. If we do a small percentage each year, to keep up.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have such a hard time at the end of that.
Yeah, well, and I think we're going to need to do it yearly anyway, even if there is a surplus. And the reason I say that is because the next step in being a fully funded fire department is going to be a larger building. Am I right, Jimmy? And so yeah, they've already outgrown the one I've got. And so you start adding more people and equipment into that, and that's going to need to be something to look at down in the future. It's not something that we have a funding plan for now, but I think that the funding plan is we're going to stay more on top of these fees year over year over year, so that we're raising the money needed to provide the services we're providing. So does that make sense? Okay. I'm going to keep going. Page 17, communications and dispatch center level funding, flood control and conservation, soil conservation level funding. Fire hydrants, I reduced that a little bit. We had that bloated a little bit. Our fire department, our fire hydrant utility expensive had never been that high. They're closer to about 6,200, so 6,500 gives us the cushion that we need there. Page 18, you get to the street department. So starting down the proposed budget you see there, we're recommending the $500. I'm sorry, we're recommending a larger raise than $500 for all employees in this department. For foremans and laborers, you see there, we're recommending $3,000. And for the commissioner, you see that we're recommending 5,500. And then going down street department a little bit further, we're increasing utilities, because those rates keep going up. And those buildings are not easy to heat. Yeah. Mhm.
So, oh, yes, I need labor, it's not funded,
It's
No.
correct. It's not.
sometimes not. 2 people.
So let me speak to that a little bit. Because this is one thing that you'll notice here is that the street department proposed budget and the street department hopeful budget are the same. But the one difference is, so right now that temp help for $30,000, what we've used that to cover is 2 temps in the summer, one of whom is focused on what I'll call street stuff, and one of whom is focused on what I'll call grounds technician. And they're out there watering flowers and helping clean the street department, that sort of stuff. In the proposed budget, that scenario stays the same. So we have that same $30,000 to have one person being grounds technician and one person doing the labor of street stuff. In the hopeful budget, I've moved that grounds technician to a different department, which would allow that 30,000 to be used to have 2 temps who are both doing the more laborious activities. That person in the hopeful budget has been moved to Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec, which we'll get to in about 2 more pages. Yeah, I think the equipment will stay the same. And I think this has just been a desire to see this moved out of street department. It's not strictly within their purview. And doing that would free up them to focus on things that are more street.
Counselor Gump has a question.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Because I know I can say, is there money in here to paint the building?
If there's money in there now to paint the building.
Okay, 'cause I know we discussed that in the past.
Yeah. We power washed it last fall, right? To prep it for painting.
Yeah. Judy can attest, it's pretty bad. It's an eyesore. It's an eyesore.
It's a good volunteer project for a group.
So Sherry, what was your question?
Mike said that. I mean, I could slap.
We're gonna have somebody do it.
Yeah.
Both budgets have somebody for that.
But in the hopeful budget,
And
it's in
the
Parks and
tighter
Rec.
one, it's still in the street department.
You're gonna
like it
rec what?
always was, and the proposed one, we're gonna
Oh,
roll out.
nothing to it,
Just
yeah.
create another temp
problem.
position in Parks and Rec. and
Okay,
we're gonna
Joe.
Okay.
Get those duties to that.
Okay.
Yeah. We think we're gonna buy some new trucks and.
Yep.
redo the
Um,
Parks and Rec.
Other than that, you see some reductions in a few other places. Capital outlay, there are some reductions there. Because we've got the curb painting machine now, so we don't need that budgeted anymore. Mike has indicated that he can get the improvements that he needs made to the waste, to the salt shed this year. So that's not something that needs to be budgeted in the future. Next page, page 20, streetlights. You see, I'm recommending an increase there to $70,000. I may actually have to come to you with a budget adjustment before the end of this year because the 64,800 that we have budgeted right now may not be enough to cover the utilities for the streetlights. I think it's going to be a really beneficial thing when we have a streetlight fee and we can point to it and say, this is our streetlight bill and this is what we need to raise to get there. I think right now, the street fee that we have in the ordinance would raise, I think, 85% of that. And I think in the future, it would be hopeful to get the streetlight fee to be as close to that as possible, raise as close to that much as possible. I think it's an all-inclusive
What-
contract. Is that right? Like
We just
it's-
pay a monthly fee for the street lights, depending on the type of street light it is, if it's LED or halogen bulb or whatever, and if, they don't charge us when they replace the bulbs, or if there's a fixture bad, they just replace it, and we just keep paying that monthly fee.
With 47 lights out, you wouldn't think it'd be so much.
Yeah.
And a lot of.
Well, they're not metered, it's a flat rate, so
Oh.
none of these street lights have a meter on them, you're not paying for that. That's exactly right.
Wow.
Thing too, a lot of them will flicker and be on for like 3 seconds and then they go back off. They flicker for 3 seconds and they go back off.
I don't,
Some they just replace.
I don't know how First Energy manages their street light program. Like I said, we don't pay them. It's not like we pay them $50 for a fixture or anything like that. They just replace them as they go. So I'm sure they've got some kind of internal budget that they say we've got so much money for street light fixtures. And so like you said, I don't think they're in any hurry to. I'd say. Yeah, we'll talk to them about that.
Yeah, that's okay. I think streetlights is a can of worms we need to talk about sometimes. I don't, Susie always swore, she said if citizens knew how much streetlights cost, they'd never want a streetlight.
Yeah.
Signs and signals, I'm recommending moving a little bit of money there between lines. Not a big change in the whole 752 account. Snow removal, I'm recommending level funding. Note on that real quick. We've so far this year spent just under $15,000 on salt. I think we're at 14.5. If we have no more snow and we need no more salt, then we can get that brine applicator this year. And so that may be something that can drop off in future years. But I'm leaving it there right now because if we have another snow and we need more salt, that $5,000 is basically the cushion we've got there in the current budget to get that done. Street construction, you see we're down to 151 in the proposed budget, but then we're up to 260 in the hopeful budget. Street cleaning, I'm recommending level funding. Sidewalks is not something we do out of general fund. It's something we do out of coal severance, and I'll come back and talk about that in just a minute. Recycling, recommending level funding. Storm sewer, that's the stormwater fund stuff. I'm recommending level funding there. And remember that gets reimbursed. We have to have it budgeted there so that we can expend the money legally. But then as we incur those expenses, we submit them to D periodically. And those get reimbursed from the stormwater fund. So that's doesn't actually have budget impact. Okay, so Parks and Rec, there's a few things going on here. And I'm going to jump to the bottom of to where it's $9.99 AmeriCorps grant match, and you see there's $25,000. That's what I'm anticipating the budget impact of the AmeriCorps grant match to be if we go forward with the grant next year. And what that includes is Laura, who is a staff member who has salary and benefits. And then it includes a whole slew of AmeriCorps members under her and the things necessary to run that program. So you're getting a lot of bang for your buck out of that $25,000. And like I said, that's completely inclusive of Laura, every expense related to having Laura, and then a whole team of AmeriCorps members underneath of her.
And
And
still
then
trying to wrangle some of that from the BOE, right? We think
we are,
we're trying to work
we're hoping.
through some of the programs there too.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's so we're going to try to get that number down as low as we can. But I was trying to be as thoughtful as I could when I was budgeting it, and that assumes that we're not going to get any more matches from anywhere else, which is certainly not our hope. And she's working on a 21st century grant as well, which would bring that cost down. And then the other thing you see is that in the hopeful budget, I've just got this $15,000 penciled in for grounds technician. And so what that is you remember in the proposed budget, that person is still in street department. And in the hopeful budget, I moved them here. And that's just an all-inclusive penciled in number. So you see FICA is not spelled out or anything. That's just an all-inclusive number thrown at the wall. And then Historic Landmarks Commission. I'm recommending level funding in the proposed budget. In the hopeful budget, I'm recommending the addition of the facade grant program, sort of give that a permanent home. Beautification, in the proposed budget, I'm recommending level funding, but in the hopeful budget, I'm recommending increased funding. This year, our beautification budget is going to be real tight, and it's because of the work that we did out on Water Street, which is I think it's important work to do. I think it's those things are long lasting. They'll have impact for time to come. And so I think budgeting for that in the hopeful budget, I think makes sense.
That suck up.
Yeah, thank you. Cemeteries, so proposed, you see that mowing number keeps going up, but I've already talked to you about that. We've looked closely at that and we still think we're on the best course there. The thing that changes in the hopeful budget is in the hopeful budget, I'm recommending you see $10,000 for the McPelia Fund and $10,000 for the Arnold Fund. And what that is, so McPelia has a fund in place. The fund is insufficient to cover their expenses, which is why we do what we do out of general fund. And then we submit to them our expenses and they can reimburse what they can afford to reimburse, which is always far below actual expenditures. So their perpetual fund is insufficient to take care of their cemetery. Arnold has no perpetual fund at all. In the hopeful budget, I'm recommending that we start socking money away towards those things. It's something that should have been done 30 years ago. That would have been the best time. But I think the second best time is to start now. So it's at least somewhere to start. Streets and transportation, that's where we budgeted capital expenditures for street upgrades. So that's where we had the phase 2 guardrail project. That should be done by the end of this year. So I put a $10,000 placeholder there, just because something comes up usually in that world that you might need that for. And then down here in culture and recreation, we've held a $15,000 line to be used for grant matches for quite a long time. And now I've moved that down. You see, I've written Region 7 Riverfront Grant Management. That's something that they've offered to do. I think would be really advantageous for us to take advantage of that and make sure all that stuff gets executed well and executed on time. So last few thoughts for you is the budget meeting is on the 18th. And I'm hoping at that meeting to go ahead and pass a budget. I'm going to bring you the center column, the proposed budget, and ask you to pass it. If you have strong feelings about things that need changed, I would love to hear them as soon as possible so that we can work through those. And if you think that a lot more discussion needs to happen, I'd like to maybe even schedule another meeting before the 18th so that by the time the 18th comes along, I'm hoping that we're all on the same page and ready to move forward with something. The budget has to be into the state by the 27th. So if we could get together the 18th and we say we need more time, we do have more time. The 26th, the Hubcap group has asked the city to hold another city meeting day. So that's, if you'll remember the Hubcap kickoff last year, and we offered the budget breakdown and everything else. Hubcap has asked us to do that on the 26th this year. So I'm hoping to have a budget well ahead of that so that I can have that prepared for that meeting. April 16th is the day we officially set the levy. Is it third Tuesday in April? I think third Tuesday in April. April 18th is when the AmeriCorps grant is due. So it's my intention at the April 16th meeting that the state mandates to bring the AmeriCorps grant for final approval as well. One last thing is that I did not bring you anything today for coal severance, but I will bring you something for coal severance on March 18th. And the reason for that is every year we do the same thing. We budget all the money in sidewalks, and I didn't think it was worth having 3 more columns on this document just to say that we're going to put coal severance in sidewalks again. I'm sorry that took so long. I tried to keep it as short as possible. Any thoughts or any feedback immediately? Okay. If not, like I said, if you think of anything, chew on everything we talked about, try to hit me up before the March 18th and we'll talk about it. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, next, under mayor's report, I passed out a copy of all the meetings attended this month. And today I was fortunate enough to travel to Charleston with Chris Bailey, the director of the Chamber of Commerce, and Ray Smith, the director of the EDA, for the kickoff for the On Track program. And we joined Moundsville and Ravenswood. There were about 15 people there. So it was very nice. So this is the very beginnings of the program, and we'll be hearing from the director, Jennifer Brannon. She'll be coming in soon, and they're going to be doing another site visit like they did at the city building. So it would be nice to have as many people there as possible. I don't know the date. I'll send that though. I've got a whole calendar of dates for things, but I'll get that to you. Okay, and this evening, we're going to start with Ward 4.
Oh, wow. What do you think of that? So I can leave and go home an hour before you guys do. You know, I don't have much. I'd just like to say I've had a couple of calls or complaints about the feline or the cat issues, but as Marty and them said, they've been working on those, and I wasn't aware of how many they've taken this or trapped from young residents there, so I appreciate that. Marty, take a look at that report over, ton more than what I've stated that she's been doing, so feel free to pass that along, but, yeah. And then, would like to thank our city law enforcement, for my personal business, so I won't get into that much, but, when my employees got there the other morning, we had a door knocker that said the property was secure. I guess they checked it like 4 to 4 in the morning or something like that, so. I wasn't aware we were doing that, probably should have been, but I thank you guys for that, I thought that was pretty neat. And on that, so, that everything else, things going pretty well. Hopefully you see, I was talking about the blacktop patching and a couple of sidewalks that, I was concerned about. Right now, that's all I have. Appreciate everybody's time.
I think I discussed a lot of things I already had on my list, so I think I've Xed off a lot of things. One thing I would like for us to consider is either doing a biannual or a quarterly public meetings again. I think those are good for us to have the public come in, meet us. I especially like to see one at like Christmas time, have maybe like a Christmas open house or something. Maybe a Masonic temple, snacks. I think that's kind of a good thing for us to be with the public. And I also considered, we talked about like the streetscape program, and I know we're still waiting to hear about the transportation officer. What if we did like a phone code lot? Yeah. Yeah, no, not street light, but the decorative lights.
Yes.
If we would run the electric and like the businesses or something, maybe sponsor a light or something.
Right now, it's more of a, and I'm not thinking of that either. We've got $200,000 in our ARPA allocation that we said we're gonna use for streetscape plans. I don't think it's a money, it's a time thing for us, but yeah, I think. We'll probably burn through that, once we get started to burn, we'll probably burn it very quickly. We've got probably 10 to 12 spots we're targeting plans for.
And then, I just think the more lighting we have, the
Yeah.
less
Like,
activity we have.
You can hang banners and all that good stuff
Yeah,
too. So.
the less activity.
Flower brackets.
So I also want to call attention to our, the girls basketball send-off this tomorrow to state tournament. The boys will be also playing Wednesday at Shady Springs for a chance hopefully to get a spot in the state tournament. Our wrestlers just have, so come out and support our young people. Thank you, Debbie. Stephen?
I just want to say thank you to all of our city staff. I know that, my work in particular keeps the street department and the police department. I don't want to contract for that. But, yeah, no, I do thank you guys so much for all your work. And frankly, when I have an issue, I reach out to these guys, and usually it's resolved before I can even reach back out to whoever got back to me. So that's much appreciated as well. And hopefully we can do you guys some good with passing all this good and stuff.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say thank you to all of our employees. I know how hard you work because it's very visible in our community, the hard work that's being done. Also wanted to recognize our own Dee Evans, who was a recent nominee for the Jefferson Award. Congratulations, Dee, and well deserved. And with that, I'll move to adjourn. What?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
You can't, but there's the first